And now the end is near.
For over 27 years, Frank Sinatra's legendary vault at the Cal Neva Resort had remained sealed, its combination lost with the chairman of the board when he died in 1998. When professional safecracker Dave McOmie finally cracked open Frank Sinatra's legendary vault at the Cal Neva Resort in 2025, the massive steel door revealed something no one expected. The vault was a Herring Hall Marvin fire safe, the heaviest duty model ever produced by the manufacturer. This steel monster weighed several tons and featured an unprecedented 5-tumbler locking system. Standard combination locks contain 3 or 4 inner wheels known as tumblers. Sinatra's safe contained 5 spinning wheels that had to align perfectly for the mechanism to release. "I have never spent more time researching a safe," McOmie posted on the National Safemen's Organization members-only blog. "I wasn't sure what I was dealing with and didn't want to fall on my face, embarrass myself in front of a crowd and ruin a nearly irreplaceable lock." The construction resembled Russian nesting dolls. The outer shell measured 6 feet tall and 4 feet wide, with steel walls 8 inches thick. Inside this fortress sat another bank vault door with its own independent locking mechanism. Behind that door waited a third barrier, a cannonball vault with walls so thick they could stop armor-piercing rounds. McOmie had cracked safes for 53 years, from century-old bank vaults to modern high-security systems. He had worked on celebrity cases before, including Prince's vault at Paisley Park, which contained thousands of unreleased recordings. But Sinatra's creation challenged him like no other. The safe required specialized drilling equipment to penetrate the outer shell. McOmie used a surgical scope to examine the internal mechanisms through the small hole he created. The 5 tumblers gleamed like precision clockwork, each wheel requiring exact positioning before the fence could drop and release the lock bolt. Working in the noisy construction environment of the renovating Cal Neva Resort, McOmie wore a hard hat while drilling through layers of hardened steel. The pounding and welding around him made his sensitive listening devices useless. He had to rely purely on visual inspection and mechanical manipulation. After 3 hours of precise work, the outer door finally surrendered. McOmie and his son Aiden aligned the final tumbler positions. The fence dropped. The lock bolt retracted smoothly. Frank Sinatra's outer vault stood open for the first time since 1998. Inside, they found elaborate shelving systems built to accommodate documents, cash, precious metals, and other valuables. Every shelf was completely empty. The second vault door yielded more easily, revealing another storage area designed for maximum security. Empty shelves lined the walls. The final cannonball vault, surprisingly, had been left unlocked. When they opened this innermost chamber, they discovered the same thing: nothing. There was a collective groan of disappointment. All the shelves were empty, McOmie wrote in his professional blog. The man who had built a reputation on keeping secrets had left his most secure storage completely bare. Francis Albert Sinatra was born December 12, 1915, in Hoboken, New Jersey, to Anthony Martin Sinatra and Natalie Della Garaventa. His father worked as a boxer, firefighter, and bootlegger. His mother ran an illegal abortion business during Prohibition and served as a Democratic Party activist who wielded considerable local political influence. The Sinatra household operated at the intersection of legitimate business and criminal enterprise. Young Frank witnessed firsthand how money changed hands in dark corners, how favors were traded for silence, and how information became currency in the shadowy economy of Depression-era New Jersey. Sinatra's godfather was Willie Moretti, a kingpin in the Genovese crime family who controlled large portions of Hoboken's illegal activities. Moretti taught the young singer valuable lessons about loyalty, discretion, and the power that came from knowing other people's secrets. These early relationships shaped Sinatra's understanding that success often depended on who you knew and what you knew about them. By age 20, Sinatra was performing with local bands and developing the smooth vocal style that would make him famous. But even as his entertainment career blossomed, he maintained connections to the underworld figures who had helped raise him. These relationships would follow him throughout his life, creating opportunities and dangers in equal measure. When Sinatra moved to New York City in the late 1930s to pursue bigger opportunities, he brought with him a sophisticated understanding of how power operated in America's shadow economy. He knew how to cultivate relationships with influential people, how to trade favors, and most importantly, how to keep his mouth shut when silence was required. His early success with the Harry James Orchestra and later with Tommy Dorsey brought him national attention. By 1940, teenage girls were fainting at his concerts, but federal investigators were also beginning to take notice. The FBI opened its first file on Sinatra in 1943, initially focusing on allegations that he had paid $40,000 to a doctor to obtain a medical deferment from military service during World War II. The draft deferment investigation found no evidence of bribery. Sinatra had indeed suffered a perforated eardrum that made him unfit for military service. But the FBI investigation introduced him to J. Edgar Hoover's surveillance apparatus, beginning a relationship that would last 4 decades and produce over 2,400 pages of documentation. Sinatra's rise to superstardom in the 1940s coincided with his deepening connections to organized crime figures. In 1947, he attended a 4-day meeting in Havana, Cuba, hosted by Charles Lucky Luciano, the exiled boss of bosses who was attempting to coordinate American organized crime operations from his Caribbean exile. FBI agents photographed Sinatra arriving in Havana, carrying a suitcase that investigators believed contained $2 million in cash for Luciano. When confronted by reporters, Sinatra claimed he was simply taking a vacation and had met Luciano by chance. Federal agents knew better, but they couldn't prove the true purpose of his visit. Throughout the 1950s, Sinatra's FBI file grew thicker. Agents documented his friendships with Joseph "Joe" Fischetti, a cousin of Al Capone. They recorded his business relationships with Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana. They investigated his connections to Meyer Lansky, the financial mastermind of organized crime who laundered money through legitimate businesses across the country. But despite decades of surveillance, wiretaps, and investigation, federal agents could never find concrete evidence that Sinatra was more than a celebrity who happened to know criminals. They suspected he was laundering money through his business ventures. They believed he was carrying messages between crime families. They theorized he was using his influence with politicians to help organize crime operations. Yet they could never prove any of it. Sinatra was too careful, too smart, and too well-connected to leave evidence that could be used against him. He understood that in his world, survival depended on knowing everything while appearing to know nothing. In 1960, Frank Sinatra purchased the Cal Neva Resort and Casino on Lake Tahoe for $250,000, partnering with Dean Martin and secretly, Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana. The resort straddled the Nevada-California border, with the state line running directly through the casino floor and the swimming pool. Sinatra immediately began transforming Cal Neva into something unprecedented, a private kingdom where he could control every aspect of the environment. He constructed a helicopter landing pad on the roof for discreet arrivals and departures. He built private bungalows along the lakeshore, where guests could stay without registering at the main hotel. Most importantly, Sinatra had an elaborate tunnel system constructed beneath the property. These underground passages were carpeted in rich burgundy and lined with brick walls. Electric lighting illuminated the corridors that connected the main showroom to the lakeside bungalows, allowing celebrities and other important guests to move undetected between public and private areas. The tunnels served multiple purposes beyond avoiding paparazzi. They allowed for meetings that needed to remain completely invisible to law enforcement surveillance. Business could be conducted in the underground passages without risk of being photographed or overheard by federal agents who might be watching the resort's public areas. Sinatra installed his personal vault in the most secure section of these underground tunnels, behind multiple locked doors and hidden from casual discovery. The location ensured that accessing the vault would require not only the combination, but also detailed knowledge of the resort's hidden infrastructure. Cal Neva quickly became the most exclusive and dangerous playground in America. Sinatra performed regularly in the Celebrity Room, a 700-seat theater that hosted the biggest names in entertainment. Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and Joey Bishop joined him for shows that became legendary among those lucky enough to attend. But the real action happened after the public performances ended. In the private bungalows and underground meeting rooms, some of the most powerful people in America gathered to conduct business that couldn't be done through normal channels. President John F. Kennedy stayed at Cal Neva multiple times, both before and after his election. Attorney General Robert Kennedy visited with his family. The resort served as a neutral meeting ground where politicians could interact with entertainment figures and, allegedly, organize crime representatives without attracting public attention. Marilyn Monroe became a regular guest, often staying in Bungalow 52, which offered complete privacy and direct access to the tunnel system. During her final visit in July 1962, just days before her death, Monroe was reportedly in an extremely fragile emotional state. She was fighting with both Kennedy brothers over their reluctance to leave their wives for her. According to witnesses, Monroe was not allowed to leave the resort during that final weekend. Only Sam Giancana was permitted to visit her in the bungalow. When her former husband, Joe DiMaggio, arrived unannounced, security guards turned him away at Sinatra's orders. On her last night at Cal Neva, Monroe attempted by overdosing on sleeping pills. She contacted the resort's front desk before losing consciousness, and staff rushed her to a local hospital where doctors pumped her stomach. She returned to Los Angeles the next day and was found dead in her Brentwood home on August 5, 1962. The circumstances of Monroe's final weekend at Cal Neva raised questions that federal investigators pursued for years. What had upset her so severely that she attempted? What role did Giancana play in the events? And what did Sinatra know about the actress's final days? FBI agents suspected that Monroe had learned something during her stay at Cal Neva that made her a threat to powerful people. Some theories suggested she had discovered evidence of criminal activity. Others proposed she had recorded conversations that could damage political careers. If such evidence existed, Sinatra's vault would have been the logical place to store it. For 4 decades, federal investigators treated Frank Sinatra as their white whale, the celebrity criminal they could never quite catch. The FBI's pursuit of Sinatra became one of the longest-running investigations in the Bureau's history, spanning from the 1940s through the 1980s and involving hundreds of agents across multiple field offices. J. Edgar Hoover personally took an interest in the Sinatra case, viewing the singer as a symbol of everything wrong with American celebrity culture. Hoover believed that entertainers like Sinatra used their fame and influence to corrupt politicians and provide legitimacy to organized crime operations. The FBI's Sinatra file documented every aspect of his life they could access. Agents recorded his movements, photographed his associates, and analyzed his business transactions. They placed wiretaps on his phones, infiltrated his inner circle with informants, and conducted surveillance of his homes, offices, and performance venues. Bureau investigators tracked Sinatra's financial activities through a maze of corporations, partnerships, and investment vehicles. They discovered that he owned pieces of casinos, record companies, real estate developments, and entertainment venues across the country. Many of these businesses involved partnerships with men who had criminal records or suspected organized crime connections. The FBI documented Sinatra's relationship with Sam Giancana in extraordinary detail. Agents photographed the two men together at restaurants, nightclubs, and private parties. They recorded phone conversations between Sinatra and Giancana's associates. They tracked money transfers between Sinatra's businesses and companies controlled by the Chicago mob. But despite all this surveillance, investigators could never prove that Sinatra was directly involved in criminal activity. They could show that he knew criminals. They could demonstrate that he did business with companies that had questionable backing. They could prove that he traveled to locations where criminal meetings took place. What they couldn't prove was that Sinatra himself was committing crimes or actively participating in organized crime operations. He was too careful, too well-advised, and too intelligent to create evidence that could be used against him in court. Federal prosecutors repeatedly considered bringing charges against Sinatra for racketeering, tax evasion, or conspiracy. Each time, they concluded that the evidence was insufficient for conviction. Sinatra always maintained plausible deniability, claiming that his relationships with alleged criminals were purely social and that he had no knowledge of any illegal activities. The FBI's frustration with the Sinatra case reached its peak during the 1960s when the singer's friendship with President Kennedy created additional complications. Bureau officials worried that Sinatra was using his White House access to gather intelligence for organized crime figures. They suspected he was serving as a liaison between the Kennedy administration and mob bosses who wanted political protection. When Sinatra lost his gaming license at Cal Neva in 1963, after Sam moment Giancana was discovered on the property, FBI agents saw an opportunity to pressure him into becoming an informant. They approached Sinatra multiple times, offering to reduce federal scrutiny in exchange for information about organized crime operations. Sinatra refused every approach. He understood that becoming an FBI informant would be a death sentence in his world. Instead, he sold Cal Neva and distanced himself from his most problematic associates, at least publicly. For the remainder of his life, Sinatra lived under constant federal surveillance. Agents followed him to concerts, photographed his dinner companions, and analyzed his business deals. They were looking for the one mistake that would give them the evidence they needed to bring charges. That evidence never materialized during Sinatra's lifetime. When he died in 1998, investigators hoped that his personal papers and private records might finally reveal the criminal activities they had suspected for decades. The vault at Cal Neva represented their last best hope for finding the smoking that had eluded them for so long. When Dave McOmie's drill finally penetrated the last layer of steel and his surgical scope revealed the vault's interior, the emptiness was profound and complete. The shelving systems built to accommodate thousands of documents contained not a single piece of paper. Storage areas designed for cash and precious metals held nothing but air. McOmie had expected to find financial records documenting Sinatra's business relationships with organized crime figures, bank statements showing suspicious cash deposits, correspondence between Sinatra and mob bosses, photographs capturing private meetings that could incriminate powerful people. Instead, he found elaborate organization systems that had never been used, file folders arranged alphabetically but containing no documents, safety deposit boxes built into the wall structure but holding no valuables, audio equipment designed to play back-recorded conversations but connected to empty tape storage. The vacuum was so complete it seemed intentional. This wasn't a vault that had been emptied over time or cleaned out after Sinatra's death. The storage system showed no evidence of ever having been used. No dust patterns indicated where documents might have been stored. No wear marks suggested regular access to retrieve materials. The vault had been constructed as a monument to secrets that were never preserved. Sinatra had built the most secure storage facility possible and then chosen to keep it empty. But the emptiness revealed something more valuable than any documents could have: Frank Sinatra's ultimate strategy for survival in a world where information was the most dangerous weapon. By maintaining an empty vault, Sinatra had accomplished several objectives simultaneously. He had convinced enemies and allies alike that he possessed dangerous secrets worth protecting. The very existence of such elaborate security suggested that important materials were being safeguarded inside. This perception gave Sinatra power in his relationships with both organized crime figures and federal investigators. Criminals believed he had evidence that could incriminate them, making them reluctant to move against him. Federal agents assumed he had proof of criminal activities, making him a valuable potential informant. Meanwhile, the actual emptiness of the vault ensured that no documentary evidence could ever be used against Sinatra or anyone else. If federal agents had eventually gained access to the vault through search warrants or other legal mechanisms, they would have found nothing that could be used in criminal prosecutions. The empty vault also protected Sinatra's associates from posthumous exposure. Many celebrities and politicians had visited Cal Neva during its heyday. Some had engaged in activities they wouldn't want revealed to the public. By ensuring that no photographic or documentary evidence survived, Sinatra guaranteed that his death wouldn't trigger scandals that could destroy his friends' reputations. Federal investigators who had spent decades building cases against Sinatra and his associates found themselves back at square one. The vault they had hoped would vindicate years of investigation contained nothing that could advance their understanding of Sinatra's alleged criminal connections. The empty vault solves several mysteries about Frank Sinatra while creating new questions about his true relationship with organized crime. The absence of evidence suggested that investigators had either been wrong about Sinatra's criminal involvement or that he had been far more careful than anyone realized. If Sinatra had been deeply involved in organized crime operations, he would have needed to maintain records for his own protection. Business arrangements with dangerous people require documentation to prevent misunderstandings that could prove fatal. Financial transactions involving large sums of illegal money need careful tracking to avoid discrepancies that might trigger violence. The empty vault suggested that Sinatra's relationships with alleged criminals were more social than professional. He enjoyed the company of powerful men who operated outside the law, but he avoided business entanglements that would create evidence of criminal conspiracy. This interpretation aligned with the FBI's investigative findings. Despite 4 decades of surveillance, federal agents had documented Sinatra's presence at criminal meetings without proving his participation in criminal activities. They had shown that he knew organized crime figures without demonstrating that he worked with them. The vault's emptiness also revealed Sinatra's sophisticated understanding of how federal investigations operated. He knew that investigators would eventually find ways to access his most private materials. By keeping the vault empty, he denied them the evidence they needed while maintaining the impression that such evidence existed. Federal investigators had assumed that Sinatra's power came from his knowledge of other people's secrets. The empty vault suggested that his real power came from other people's belief that he possessed dangerous knowledge. The perception of having secrets was more valuable than actually having them. This strategy protected Sinatra throughout his life and continued protecting his associates after his death. When Barbara Sinatra died in 2017, estate appraisers found extensive collections of memorabilia, artwork, and personal correspondence in the family's various homes. But nothing in these materials suggested criminal activity or provided evidence that federal investigators could use. The Cal Neva Vault remained the only storage facility that could have contained truly dangerous materials. Its emptiness meant that whatever secret Sinatra had possessed during his lifetime had died with him. The empty vault stands today as Frank Sinatra's final performance, a magic trick that made something appear to exist when it never had. He had convinced the world that he possessed dangerous secrets while ensuring that no evidence of those secrets could ever be found. Federal agents who had devoted their careers to investigating Sinatra were left with thousands of pages of surveillance reports that ultimately proved nothing. Organized crime figures who had treated Sinatra as a valuable ally discovered that he had never possessed the evidence they thought made him dangerous. The man who had built a reputation on knowing everyone's secrets had taken his real secrets to the grave, leaving behind only the empty vault as proof that he had been smarter than everyone who tried to catch him. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. Bye.